This is Behind the Headlines, with behind-the-scenes analysis on issues affecting Pennsylvanians, sponsored by the Susquehanna Valley Center for Public Policy. Now, here's your host.
From Philadelphia to Erie and from Scranton to Pittsburgh, it's Behind the Headlines. Hi, I'm Charlie Greenewalt, Senior Fellow for the Susquehanna Valley Center for Public Policy, with a new edition of Behind the Headlines. On this edition of Behind the Headlines, we have Ed Arnold, Mr. Ed Arnold, joining us, who's the president of Susquehanna Valley Center for Public Policy, with a new edition of the Arnold Report. Ed, the world of finance and investment, and international finance, seems to be very turbulent. There is always a lot of change, and our viewers have a need for your expertise. And they have written in with a set of new questions. We hope that you'll be able to help us out today with.
Very good.
Okay.
Very good. Look forward.
All right. Well, let me read this the first question that was submitted for you this cycle is: as a former trucking executive, do you believe that we will have trucks driven automatically in the future? If so, how soon? And what will the consequences for us be in terms of jobs and safety?
I think that, first of all, it's going to be an evolution, not a revolution, which is what they're talking about right now, that you're going to have more and more driver assist. It will make the driver's job less pressure in some cases. And basically what I'm saying is that right now, if you were driving on the wide open roads in the West, in Kansas or in Colorado, I can see where the computer could take over and drive it down a nice straight road. And therefore, but you still have to be behind the wheel, and if something happens, you're alerted. But in the meantime, you don't have to be attentive all the time. You can be doing something else. You can even be resting. I can see that. And or for that matter, in the reverse, if you're on the expressways in the Northeast and you're terrible traffic, stop and go, going 10, 20, 30 miles an hour maximum on a straight road, again, the computer could take over the car or a truck and help you so you could get the relief of the most aggravating driving is when you're in bumper-to-bumper traffic. That's very simple for a computer to do. When we're talking about totally operating the car, I think regulations will take a long time. I think safety is a concern. Computers do fail, as we well know. And so therefore, if they fail, they'd cause an accident. So I do think, contrary to all the billions being spent, we will move towards this. But I think, will we have more and more every year? The car will take on more responsibility. But to say that the driver will not be involved, I think that's quite a few years away.
So you don't think we'll, in our lifetime, see a time when the trucks are simply driving without any drivers whatsoever and just driving based on computer technology?
No, I think that's far off. And in the meantime, it's just going to make driving a more positive job because it'll take some stress off the job, and therefore and there is a shortage of drivers, a substantial shortage of drivers. So to say that there's going to be less opportunity if you wanted to be in trucking, the answer is there's still going to be plenty of opportunity.
I think you actually cited a figure not long ago in a discussion we had about how many drivers we're short right now nationally.
Oh, there are hundreds of thousands. I mean,
Okay.
there's no question. There's always been a shortage in long-haul drivers, and this is what it would affect.
So more than
mostly.
100,000 positions.
Yeah. I mean,
oh my goodness.
The point is there are millions and millions of trucking. Now, a lot of it's local, but there still is a lot of long haul, and the combination would be there.
Well, certainly something that's caused a lot of furor recently, drawn a lot of attention, is the whole issue of Bitcoin. And we have another question here looking at the large increases and the recent drops in Bitcoin. Should investors still buy Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies?
Well, first of all, I think you got to put this into perspective. The whole cyber currency, and Bitcoin is the biggest, but there are 1,000 cyber currencies. And I'll admit 90% of the value is in about 10 or so. But the fact is, they're only $200 billion in market cap value. Bonds are 20 billion, gold is trillion. So here we're talking about billion and trillion. And stocks are 28 trillion, bonds are 20 trillion. So really, cyber currencies are very, very small. Do they have the potential to become a bigger factor and still be quite small? And if more people decide to put a small amount of money in them, could it force them up? It's a gamble. Don't invest in them in money that you can't afford to lose. At the same time, would I recommend you put a small amount of money into them? Yes.
About what percentage of your investments would you recommend?
Probably like 5% of the money that you have invested.
Now, you mentioned there are any number of cyber currencies. Can you give our viewers some idea of how many are there?
Well, as I say, there's at least 1,000.
At least 1,000? See, I don't think most viewers recognize that there's so many cyber currencies out there.
Realistically, there's more in the area of 100 that you could possibly go out and try to buy.
Okay.
I think the others are more IP. They're private companies, you could say almost, that yes, they're out there, but it would not be easy to buy. Even anything past the top 10 get quite difficult to do. So the biggest problem with cyber currency is it's not very liquid. It's very hard to trade. It's expensive to trade. It's pretty much a buy and hold.
Okay. All right. Our third question is, what is the future of reverse mortgages in the financial world?
I think reverse mortgages have a place. I think with our challenges that people are retiring with mortgages, and they're finding with their fixed income that their budgets are taxed, and they can't afford to continue to pay the mortgage. Well, the reverse mortgage, if you have a substantial equity in your house, can be used. Like anything, there's some reverse mortgages which the fees are substantial and can be difficult. It's not necessarily something for everybody. I think it has a place. It is not in the normal investment community. This is where basically a finance company will do this, some financial organization. I look at it as maybe a way for families to help each other. Mm-hmm. That you get a reverse mortgage on somebody's house, maybe that you'll eventually inherit when they die. But in the meantime, the burden of making those payments would not be on that individual.
Okay. Another question is from a viewer is, my relatives are arguing whether or not I should invest in annuities for my retirement. What do you think?
I basically, overall, I think annuities are a bad investment. I think inflation eventually will get a lot stronger. And right now, with these older people, health care and your food are big items. So actually inflation is way greater than it looks. Okay. And annuities don't protect you against inflation.
Okay. When will our bull market end, Ed? This bull market has gone on for so long, and how has such a market even been possible? One of our viewers wants to know.
Well, first of all, bull markets run on optimism and greed. And overall, that right now, because of our government, Trump is a very pro-business president, that people are very optimistic. More new companies are being formed now. Actually, the business in America shrank under Obama. There was less and less small private companies because more were dropping off than were being formed because he was an anti-business president. So basically, there is a lot of optimism. Is it being overdone? Is the market expensive? But it's like, it's a baseball game, and are we in the later innings? Yes, but there can still be a lot of runs scored.
Okay. Another viewer wants to know, why aren't antitrust actions being taken against Microsoft, Apple, Facebook, and Google? Don't you think that this is long overdue?
I agree. It's definitely long overdue. I can't believe that our government is not recognizing the power of social media and the internet and the control and the influence it has in our society. And really now you've got a handful of companies that really, almost you could say, are running the country. Mm-hmm. And so basically, yes, I don't know how they're going to do it. I think that they have so much wealth and power that they're influencing.
It almost appears that the government's scared of these companies.
They don't know quite what to do, but I really think it's sad that they're not. I agree with you, they should do something.
Well, the viewer, yeah. Another question from a viewer is, I just learned what small cap stocks are. Are they a good investment? First of all, could you tell our viewers what a small cap stock is, and are they good investments?
It's capitalization. It's companies up to maybe $1 billion or $2 billion. Then you have mid cap, which is 2 to 25 or 50 billion, and then you have your large cap. Overall, they all move relatively similar. There's more volatility in smaller cap. That right now they've done quite well, but in the long run, these diversification in different size companies, if you were going to do it, I would say you do it in an exchange-traded fund, an ETF, which is less expensive, and it'd be a variety of small companies. But overall, I can't say that they're better or not as good as large cap. They go in cycles.
Okay. Last 30 seconds. Last question. Which investing app do you use on your phone, on your cell phone?
Well, actually, it came with a cell phone. At least with Apple, there is actually one that just comes with a phone, which gives you the basic information. You can follow your stock. You can see the news on your stock. You can see the general trend of what it's been doing over the last couple of years. There is an MSNBC app that is out there that you could also use, and I'm sure if you check, there are other minor apps. But overall, you're going to have to get really detailed information. You should probably get a broker. He will give you a Morningstar report. There's different reports you can get that'll have real detail. And it still would have to be the old-fashioned way that you would get a tear sheet.
Okay. Well, we thank you very much for solving some of these issues and throwing more light on them. And we invite our viewers, send your questions in. Ask Mr. Arnold what you're thinking about in regard to finance. We're all out of time for this segment. We'll be right back with segment number 2 of Behind the Headlines.
Behind the Headlines is brought to you as a public service by the Hospital and Health System Association of Pennsylvania, helping hospitals provide healing, health, and hope to communities across the state. And by the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry. The Pennsylvania Chamber serves as the frontline advocate for business on Pennsylvania's Capitol Hill by influencing the legislative, regulatory, and judicial branches of state government. Additional underwriting provided by the Worrell Corporation Foundation, based in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, by the Edward H. and Jeannie Arnold Foundation, and by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business. Behind the Headlines is also supported as a public service by the Pennsylvania Highway Information Association, the go-to source to learn about transportation projects and issues. Visit pahighwayinfo.org.
Hi, welcome back to Behind the Headlines. On this particular segment, we have some special guests for you, and we're going to talk about a very special topic, particularly one that's very important for the future of Pennsylvania and the nation. We recently received an op-ed from the Commanding General of the U.S. Army Recruiting Command addressing the issue of today's youth and how they are not receiving all the information they need to make an informed decision about their future. Today, telling us how this affects Pennsylvanians, we have with us representatives from one of the Army's recruiting battalions here in Pennsylvania. First of all, we have Lieutenant Colonel Christopher Duncan, and we have Command Sergeant Major Steven Laick from the Harrisburg Recruiting Battalion. Welcome to Behind the Headlines, gentlemen.
Thank you, Doctor.
What I'd like to do is start out by asking if you would introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about your background and share that with our viewers, if you wouldn't mind.
Thanks, Dr. Greenwald. My name is Command Sergeant Major Steven Laick, as you introduced. I've been in the Army, or will be, and have been in the Army 29 years as of this summer. So this has been a passion for me, so pardon me if I exude it throughout this interview. We're going to be talking a lot about some things that our American public don't know about, and hopefully we can clear that up, because I've been living it for the last 29 years. I came in the Army when I was 17 years old. I've held many different jobs and opportunities, and I think the one that's been the most rewarding is my time as a recruiter and recruiting in our nation. I've been in every one of the 50 states doing this job, and I think I've come to know the American people. I just wish the American people could come to know us a little bit more, and that's kind of where my background comes from.
I bet there's a big difference from state to state.
Huge, sir.
You've found some. And you?
Well, Dr.
Lieutenant
Greenwald,
Colonel?
my name is Lieutenant Colonel Chris Duncan. I'm the commander of the Harrisburg Recruiting Battalion. Sergeant Major Laick and I, as he said, we want to tell the story about what the Army has to offer the youth of today, the opportunities. I've been a soldier for 20 years. The Army has been something that I've loved. I wouldn't do anything different in my 20 years of service, and it's been an incredible opportunity for me to realize my dreams that I had as a young person looking at my future.
Okay. Well, the Harrisburg Battalion isn't the only battalion in Pennsylvania. Of course, we have 67 counties. What areas do you folks cover?
Well, so we recruit for the United States Army and the United States Army Reserve in 52 of the 67 counties of Pennsylvania. So my 7 companies include areas such as Pittsburgh, State College, the Lehigh Valley, right here in Harrisburg in central Pennsylvania, and in the Clarion area in the Northwest. I have 30 recruiting centers across the 52 counties that we operate in, and I've got a force of about 242 soldiers and Department of the Army civilians. My soldiers come from both the regular Army and the United States Army Reserve, and we operate throughout those 52 counties to tell the Army story and help inspire young people to serve their nation.
Mm-hmm. As I read the General's message, it made it seem like there's a growing disconnect with the public, at the very least a lot of misinformation. Is that true here in Pennsylvania as well?
It is. 71% of today's youth can't meet the basic qualifications to enlist the United States Army. But more important than that, 50% of our youth don't even know about the opportunities that they have. So reaching that 29%, how are we going to do it? We've got a couple of challenges. We've got a generational gap with the end of the draft and the beginning of the volunteer force. We don't have a large military installation here in Pennsylvania that exposes people on a regular basis. And people don't know that there's 150 jobs in the United States Army. Most of those jobs, we see the ones on television. We see what we call the combat jobs. And we'll see those on television, see those in the movies. But behind them, in the majority of our jobs, are things you'd find every day, everywhere in America. Truck drivers, dental hygienists, clerks, paralegals, mechanics. We have all of those jobs, and all of those jobs are the exact same training and accreditation as their civilian counterparts.
In fact, in our church, we have a Army chaplain.
Exactly.
So there really are all segments of society represented, aren't there?
There is. You can even, and since you mentioned chaplain, we also have a chaplain's assistants. So the chaplain is the officer, and the chaplain assistant is an enlisted soldier in support of services. Because there's faith-based religion throughout the Army of all religious backgrounds.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
It appears that you're looking for the same type of individuals that every company in Pennsylvania would like to have. Do you think that in the private sector that human relations representatives view you as competition for the talent that's out there?
Dr. Greenwald, I'm so glad you asked that question because they do. They absolutely do. We are their number one competitor. In fact, we're the number one employer of American people in the United States, if you look at the size of our organization and how many we employ. And not just us, but with our counterpart military services as well. With the growing generations and that small percentage of folks who qualify, those are the same people that employers would like to have on their teams. But the difference between us getting them first and the employers is that we also turn them into somebody better than who they were with just that limited experience in life. So where you have the qualifications of a college graduate who's looking for that starting point in a career path from their college education. There's a lot of employers that turn them away because they don't quite have the experience or the tools yet that the employer is looking for. Internships are difficult to get into and even then turn into the employment level that they're looking for after graduation. Same with high school students. And over time, they might get discouraged and you find them in other career paths. Whereas when the Army takes them, they've got the education, they've got all the qualifications, we give them the skills and the leadership necessary. And when we turn them away after the Army, after their time, either full service, retirement, they've also got the skills to pay the bills. These employers are ready to take these folks because they're drug-free. They've had leadership experience that's invaluable that most employers can't teach or provide the training because of the levels of training and development that we provide in leadership. So yes, I would say that for HR consultants, when they see the Army coming, it's a competition, and we're after the same quality of folks.
Mm-hmm. And your opinion on that, Lieutenant Colonel?
So I just want to caveat and build on one thing that the Sergeant Major said. So yes, we are looking at the same pool of folks that our top universities, our top businesses, our top government sector jobs are looking for. These are the future congressmen, senators, judges, captains of industry. The president one day is probably somewhere in there. Mm-hmm. But there's a win-win. Exactly as the Sergeant Major said, not everyone is going to be able to go right into the job market, the higher education market. The skills that we teach, not just the technical training, but the leadership training, is what makes the Army so critical and so vital to developing the youth of America.
Mm-hmm. Well, here on Behind the Headlines, we've had numerous shows over the years, actually, about the high cost of education and what is that doing to our society, what is that doing to the general public and our young people. Do you share that concern about the high cost of education?
Yes, we do. So we meet regularly with Pennsylvania Department of Education to help discuss the programs we have available to assist educators, students, and parents. Mm-hmm. The Army, as an organization, we run one of the largest educational systems in the nation. And in totality of all of our schools, the largest. We provide both technical education and academic education throughout our institution. So those opportunities to help better individuals through Army service, through service in the regular Army or the U.S. Army Reserve, are things that we want to make people aware of. One of the initiatives we have is a program called March to Success. I want to talk just a little bit.
What is it called again?
March to Success.
March to Success. Okay.
And I want to talk just a little bit about March to Success.
Sure.
March to Success is a free program, and it's available for educators, parents, and students. It's online, costs nothing, and it provides free online tutorials and preparation for standardized testing. Peterson's the test preparation company, the people that developed it. One of the unique things about March to Success, anyone can do March to Success. There's no service obligation with it. And not only do we have the standardized test, the SAT, the ACT, but the new March to Success will also have the medical college admissions test, the MCAT, pre-admissions exams, and then the PSB RN, the nursing exam prep tests in there as well. Mm-hmm. Kind of as you look at our commitment to education, there is a commitment to education within the service. But to go back, we are building better citizens through education, regardless of whether they serve or not.
Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on this, Sergeant Major?
So education has been a constant struggle. There is a lot of young men and women who don't even pass the entrance exam for enlistment in the military. And that's not to say that that's a bad thing. It's just that the math and English required, we're looking for problem solvers, not problem identifiers. So the test requirements find those individuals who are capable of solving those problems and answering the questions. We do have to read, write, and everything else that would be expected of any person in a career path. So when we look at March to Success and enhancing those individuals, it gives them the opportunity to run through a test pattern to get ready for the United States Army and what that may, not just in the physical, but in the mental. And we're looking for that aspect when we're looking for that best of the best.
Mm-hmm. I know my godson took advantage of ROTC, and he joined ROTC when he was at Millersville University so that he was able to afford the university. And then I believe it helped him pay for law school after the service as well. And it turned out to be a very good bargain for him.
Yes, sir.
But what about the costs of education, Lieutenant Colonel?
Right. So 7,000 enlisted soldiers completed their degrees last year. They used the Army Tuition Assistance Program, and that's over $162 million each year that are spent through that program to help currently serving soldiers pursue degree programs through accredited institutions. I myself and the Sergeant Major have both made use of the tuition assistance program in our educational path. You mentioned the Reserve Officer Training Corps, ROTC. So the Army is the largest provider of college scholarships in the nation. We provide $300 million in scholarships through the ROTC program last year. And you know, I can speak from personal experience. ROTC it's a door opener. You know, not only do we have students going to institutions throughout the state, they can also take that ROTC scholarship and go anywhere they can get accepted to that will support the scholarship program.
Mm-hmm. Question. Go ahead.
You know, when you went back, you were talking about it also gives the skilled and educated force that our counterparts are looking for. So maybe there's that talent that wants to go work for your business, but they don't quite have those skills yet. With the education paths that we provide, we're also giving them an educated individual to come back to them as well.
In our last minute here, what would you say? You sort of made an indirect reference to it here as we began the show. More and more of today's youth are not physically fit enough to enter any of the services. What can we do about this?
Well, one of the things that the United States Army has taken is we've instituted the occupational physical assessment test. So not only do you just get to enlist under the basic qualifications of mental and physical requirements through medical, but you also have to do a skills test with weights and jumping and athletic requirements in order to ensure that the job you're going into, you have the physical capabilities to perform in that job. We also want to make sure that they can endure the time. It's like looking for a professional athlete. You know, when you need a quarterback, you go and recruit a quarterback. If you're looking for a lineman, you go and recruit a lineman. Mm-hmm. So I could say infantry, I could say lawyer, two different physical strength requirements that we're looking for. So we have to make sure that we're getting those physical requirements as well. This is a professional organization.
Okay, gentlemen, I wish we had more time. We'd love to have you back. And as the Army used to say, and for all of you out there, be all that you can be, and we'll see you next week.